All right, great. Well, like I said, thank you guys so much for joining me. This evening is the first of the Evans Library GradTrack workshops for the spring 2021 semester. Today, or to this evening really, we're going to be together discovering the benefits of Zotero. So my name is Chelsea Stripling. I am the head of library instruction here at the Evans Library, and I will be guiding you through this evening's presentation. So for our agenda for this evening's workshop, we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what Zotero is and how to get started. That'll be a really brief introduction. I'm going to go over the features of the Zotero application interface and the Zotero connector, which are the two main pieces of software that you need to utilize Zotero. And then we'll move into some live demonstrations. So I'll first talk about saving items into Zotero, and I'll show you a few different methods of doing that. Then we'll move on to talking about organizing and sharing. And then I will demonstrate different ways to create citations and bibliographies with Zotero. We will have time, like I said, for some Q&A at the end. So depending on the questions or concerns or curiosities that you have, I could also do some additional live demonstrations to kind of illustrate things for you guys. So again, starting off, what is Zotero? So as you can see from this little screen grab from the Zotero website, Zotero is your personal research assistant. It is a tool that's called a citation manager. And the cool thing about Zotero is it is an open source tool. That means it's free to create the account and it is free to use. So you don't have to pay any kind of subscription to continue using Zotero. As you can see in the screenshot as well, it also says that it is a tool to help you collect, organize, cite, and share your research. It can be an amazing time saver and a great research companion. Oftentimes when we're doing academic research projects or working on literature reviews, we're juggling a lot of information sources at one time. So Zotero is there to help us. We have ways to use it across multiple devices, and that's one of the really big benefits about Zotero. In addition to being free to use, there is a web interface with Zotero, so you can actually log into your Zotero account using your web browser. Or you can download the bits of software, the Zotero application and the Zotero connector to use your Zotero account right on your computer or your machine. The other cool thing about Zotero is that it syncs across multiple devices. So you don't even have to be using your own computer or your own machine to access your Zotero library and get back to all of your saved items and your research. As long as you're signing in with your Zotero account, you'll be able to see all of your items that you've saved. So again, you can use that web interface, or you can just log into your Zotero account on the Zotero application. The other great thing, of course, is that you get to keep your items. So this is not something that is tied to a subscription. So when you're using Zotero, you're free to take all of this collection of information sources along with you. Now, I'm not sure how many we have today that are maybe graduate students or even undergraduate students, but you may be planning to leave Florida Tech at some point and go to another institution to continue your studies. If that's the case, you can continue to use Zotero and you can continue to retain all of those information sources that you've already saved to your library. So again, lots of benefits, and it's a very easy to use tool. Now, speaking of benefits, you might be wondering, how can Zotero help me? So when I talk about the benefits of Zotero, I like to explain them around three major aspects or factors. So the first major benefit of Zotero is that it stores your information sources that you find during research, no matter what that information source is or where you find it. And it allows for easy re-access to that source later on. So a lot of times with academic research, we're not just looking at academic journal articles or books. We're also using web resources and maybe looking at videos and other types of blog posts, all kinds of information sources. So Zotero can save the information for any type of source, no matter what it is. Also, again, like I said, no matter where you find it. It doesn't just work with library databases or academic search tools. And the other great thing, of course, is that you can re-access these items later. So depending on how you do your research and how your kind of research workflow usually goes, some of us like to maybe keep lists of sources with citations. Some of us like to keep PDF files in folders or on flash drives. And Zotero really takes away the need for all of that kind of messy organization. It'll store all of the information for a source that you find. And again, it helps you to re-access it. So you don't have to keep a list of hyperlinks or even a list of just citations to get back to sources. The second major benefit of Zotero is that it organizes sources. Now, it does a little bit of self-organization, but the real benefit here is that there are tons of options for customizing and organizing. So when it comes to, again, finding your own research workflow, Zotero really likes to be your research assistant. It will work with you no matter how you like to organize your sources or how you like to think about, the flow of your research. There are many ways to organize your sources in Zotero. We're going to go over a few of those this evening, including collections or folders and organizing by tags. So there are a lot of options for customization. And then the last major benefit of Zotero is that it creates citations and bibliographies for you. And this is the part that seems kind of magical to a lot of students and researchers. It still seems magical to me, and I've been using Zotero for a number of years now, but it is so easy to create either in-text citations or full bibliographic citations, even full lists of references and works cited with Zotero. So again, it can save you a lot of time, and it can make your whole research process and your writing process even easier. So there's really no reason not to use Zotero. Now with this workshop, I am going to make a few assumptions off of the bat. I am going to assume that you all have a Zotero account and that you have the necessary software that you need on your computers and your machines to use Zotero. So if that is not the case, I wanted to refer you to a few resources that you can use to help you get started. There is an Evans Library research guide on citation managers, and you can see the URL link here on my slide. And again, Zotero is a type of citation manager. There are other citation manager tools out there, but our research guide talks about Zotero as well as 2 other free citation manager tools. Of course, Zotero is my personal preference, and I think the preference of most of the librarians at Evans Library. So there's a lot of great information in this research guide about how to get started with Zotero, as well as troubleshooting information. So if you run into problems along the way or need to learn more, even more than we'll cover this evening, there's a lot of resources available on the research guide. Now, a number of semesters ago, we did give a half-an-hour live workshop on Zotero basics. So there is a recorded version of that workshop available on our YouTube channel. So you can access the YouTube video here at this link. It is also embedded in the Citation Manager's research guide. But this half-an-hour workshop really starts at the beginning of being a Zotero user. So it goes over how to create your free account, how to download the necessary software, and it starts going a little over the basics of use. So today we're really going to dive in a little further to that. Now, if you do need to download the software for Zotero to get started, you can download it right on their website, zotero.org. It's just /download. Now, the cool thing about the Zotero download is Zotero automatically detects the specifications of the machine that you're using. So I took this screenshot earlier today when I visited the download page on the Zotero website, and it automatically detected that I have a Windows computer. So it's directing me to download the Zotero application interface for Windows. And it also detected that I use Google Chrome as my web browser. So it suggested downloading the Google Chrome extension, which they call the Zotero connector. So in order to use Zotero outside of their web interface, you will need both of these tools. And again, they're free to download, and it should direct you to the type of, the version that you'll need for your own computer.
This is my take on Gordon Ramsay's amazing Sesame crusted tuna.
All right, so let's kind of get started and dive in a little here. The first thing that I wanted to do before we move on to our live demonstrations and talking a little bit more practically about how Zotero works is to get us all on the same page and talk a little bit about the features of the Zotero interface. Now, this is a screenshot of my Zotero application. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using a Windows computer, so this is the version for Microsoft Windows. If you are using a Mac device or even like a tablet, it might look a little different, but most of these features are the same across devices. So this should look relatively similar to what you might see on your own computer. So I want to point out a few things about this Zotero interface, as I said. Now, the first thing that you might notice is how it is organized or how the layout is. So you can kind of identify that there are 3 columns across the screen here. Now, they're not equally divided into thirds, but you can see these 3 different scroll bars here. Each of these little columns or panes has different features and different information in them. So in this far left column, you'll find things like the library, your collections, your groups, and the tags. In the center, you'll see items and the search bar. And on the far right column, you'll see the pane for metadata. So getting a little more specific, let's look at this first column that we see on the left-hand side. So the first thing that I've called out here is the library. Now, your library in Zotero is where everything lives. This is where all of the items that you save to Zotero go. And this is also where you have your kind of master list of all of your items. Underneath your library, you will see your list of collections. Now, some things in Zotero are kind of like vocabulary oriented, and collections is one of them. So collections is the word that Zotero uses instead of folders. So if you're thinking about organization, you can think of your collections like folders. Now, there are a couple of cool characteristics for the collections in Zotero. One thing is that items can be added to multiple collections. So your library is your master list of items. No matter what, all of your items will be displayed in your library list. But you can also drag and drop things into your collections. They will still exist in your list on your library, but if you click on those collections, you'll see that item also included in that collection. Now, you can add things to multiple collections, so you can have the same article in different collections depending on how you like to organize your research items. And the other cool thing is that deleting an item from a collection does not delete it from your library. Your collections are really just there to help you organize and maintain the research sources that you find. So your library is your master list. If you want to get something out of your Zotero library, you will need to delete it from that list of your library. Underneath your library and your collections are your group libraries. So we're going to show, I'm going to show a little bit more information about group libraries coming up, but essentially a group library is a shared library. So you can add people to a library and everyone can share these items. Anyone can add things to them or delete them or edit them. This is a really, really great feature to use, especially if you're collaborating on a project. So if you're working, maybe one semester on a group research project, or maybe later on in the future, if you're collaborating with your colleagues on something related to your work or your profession, you can create a Zotero group library, add everyone to it, and then everyone can collaborate on the research and the information finding. So this is a great way to share information with other people. Now, if you look at my screenshot here, this is the title of the library. And these group libraries act like your personal library. So this right here, the library would be the master list of all of the items. And then you can add collections within the library to, again, continue to organize or filter out those items. And the last thing in this column over here are the tags. So tags are one of the other ways that you can filter and organize your items in Zotero. You can see there's a list of tags here. There's also a search function. If you click on one of these tags, it will filter and show you only the items in your library that have that tag assigned. So we're going to talk a little bit more about tags coming up, but they are a really great way to kind of meta organize your items in addition to the collections. So the second column that we have in our Zotero application interface is kind of the main column that you see, and that's because it holds your items. So really in this center column, the only thing that you're seeing are your list of items. So if you're looking at your library, it's your master list. If you're in a particular collection, you'll see that list of items that are in that collection. And that's what, again, Zotero calls them items. These are the individual information sources that you find while you're researching. And like I said at the beginning, Zotero can save almost any type of resource. So it doesn't just have to be a book or a journal article. You can also save web pages and blogs and videos to Zotero. You'll notice in this screenshot that there are also little picture icons next to each item. So you'll notice that Zotero assigns a different little icon to each different type of item. So that's just kind of another way to sort of organize or visualize the items that you have in your collections. The search field that's up here in this center column is not a search for articles. This is searching within your Zotero library. Now there are basic and advanced search options, and there's also the option to save a search as an auto update collection. And this is a really cool feature that I found out about recently. I haven't had a chance to try it myself. But if you conduct a search through your items with a few different keywords, as you add items to your collection that would fall under that search, they automatically get added to this collection. So again, it's kind of automatically updating depending on what you add or remove from your Zotero library. Now, the last column that's in our Zotero application interface is the metadata column. My brain tends to call this the metadata pane. This is the place where all of the information about the item that's in your Zotero library is stored. So you can see from this screenshot here, it tells you what type of item it is. It saves things like the title and the author and the abstract if it's available. It also, of course, will save things like the journal information or the book publication information. Now, this metadata pane is really important because this is the information that Zotero uses to create citations. It also is the information that it uses to re-access a source later on. So if you do save a source to Zotero and you have some trouble creating a citation or it keeps creating an incorrect citation, it could be that there's an issue with your metadata. So when we get to our live demonstrations, I'll show you guys a couple of cases where that might happen. This is also the information, as I said, that Zotero uses to re-access the item. So if you notice this little green button up here at the top of this metadata column, if you click on this button, this gives you access options. So Zotero typically saves PDFs, and I'll show you more about that coming up. But if you have a PDF of this journal article available, when you click on this little green button, it will either give you the option for viewing the PDF of the article, or it will have you view it online. So that URL that it uses to get back to the database or the original location for this source is in this metadata. So again, if you do have trouble with accessing or with citations, it's probably the case is that your metadata needs some updating. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. So those are the major features of the Zotero application interface. And forgive this scrolling, but let me just go back to this main screen here. This is what this looks like. We'll look at it again in our live demonstrations. But this is your Zotero computer application. Now, this computer application works in tandem with something called the Zotero connector. So when I was talking about the downloads for Zotero, I mentioned that it automatically detects the browser that you're using and it'll recommend the connector for you. So I'm using Google Chrome browser. So I have downloaded the Zotero connector as a Chrome extension. So depending on the browser that you're using, you will locate this Zotero connector in different places. Again, I'm using Chrome, so all of my extensions show up to the right of my URL bar. So I've highlighted it here. This is what the Zotero connector looks like. Now, one thing to notice about this Zotero connector, the icon that you see changes depending on the type of item that you're trying to save. So right now with the screenshot, and you can't tell too much because I had to crop it, I'm looking at the result for a journal article in a library database. So the little icon that it's showing me is the little icon for a journal article. So all I have to do is click on that in order to save this journal article to my Zotero library. When you click on the Zotero connector, it pops up with this small little box here right in your browser. Items automatically save to your library. As I said, that's your master list of items in Zotero. But from this connector, you can also specify a particular collection that you want it saved in. So if you do want it to go into multiple places, and you can also add tags. So again, if you are a tag user, you think that's a really great organizational option, you can add those tags that are coming off of your brain directly as you're saving it. Now, also, as I mentioned a couple of times, Zotero saves PDFs. So as long as you have the access, the full text access to a PDF, or that there's a PDF available on the page that you're saving, it will pull that PDF directly into the item in Zotero. And when we get to the live demo, I'll show you how to locate that PDF. It's just attached directly to the item in your Zotero library. Now, if you're not saving a journal article or something that has a PDF file attached to it, it will typically use a little clip of your screen. So like if you're saving, a blog post or, an online magazine article, those usually don't have PDFs. So it will tell you that it's clipping the screen, and it will save a little screenshot of the item. Now that is the easy way to save in addition. Oh, do we have a question?
For example, if I'm logged in through like the myfit.edu account to use Google Scholar, for example, I'll have different access than, like, I'm also a member of AIAA. So if I actually log into their website, then I have more access to some of their publications. So like if I'm logged in multiple different ways when I'm doing some of my research, all of that will be available to me through Zotero, or how would that work?
That's a good question. And I think without getting too technical, Zotero kind of tends to take the easiest route. So depending on the page that you're looking at in your browser, when you click your Zotero connector, it will save that version of the PDF. So it might be a PDF that you're accessing through your Evans Library subscriptions, or again, through your professional association, but it will just pull that PDF and save the PDF file. In a situation where you might not have full access to that PDF, it will try to take the URL to the page that you found the item, so that when you click that little green arrow, you can get back to the original source page. And that's where access could possibly be an issue, because again, either you'll have to re-log in with your Trax account or your Evans Library credentials, or your professional association credentials. I have had situations where I've saved items to my Zotero library and then try to access them a few years later. And if I didn't have a PDF file saved, then I've had a couple of times where the URL has kind of died. So I had to go back and kind of locate a permanent URL in order to put that into the metadata in my Zotero, so that I was able to get back to the source. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So yeah, it will really just take whatever's right there available on your web browser. Now, this is the way to save an individual item, and it is, as when I always used to say this when I started using Zotero, it's like deceptively easy. It seems like there should be more steps, or that this should be a little bit more complicated, but it's really not. It's as easy as having the connector in your browser, clicking it, adding your collections of your tags, and pressing done. So it makes it very, very simple. there is an option using your Zotero connector to save multiple items. So there might be situations, especially if you're working on a literature review, where you do a search in a database and you want to kind of bulk save items. So here's a screenshot from the OneSearch, which is the main search bar on Evans Library's website homepage. So if you're looking at a list of results, you can look at your Zotero connector, and if you notice the little icon here, it's not a little article, it's actually a folder, or I guess in Zotero talk we should say a collection. So when you click on that icon, it actually brings up this little dialog box, this item selector, and then you'll be able to look at the items that you're actually viewing on your screen. There's also, as you can see, an option for select all, so you can select all of them or just the ones that you're interested in, and then press OK, and those will get saved into your library. So there are a few ways to use the Zotero connector, but again, it is the easiest way to save items into your library. And the Zotero connector works in tandem with this desktop application, so you do have to have both of them installed and both of them running. It says, I think a lot of journal articles add a DOI number, and if it's an open access paper, that would be the best to grab it. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm actually going to cover that in just a minute or two. That's another easy way to add information to Zotero. And as you said, if it is an open source item and that PDF is freely available online, it will automatically pull that PDF for you. All right, so again, let's talk about saving items. So I'm going to pull up my Zotero application here. So again, this looks just like the screenshot that I took earlier. This is my Zotero library. Right now I'm looking at my library, so this is my master list of items, and I can see, again, the metadata and the tags and the search options. Now, let's say that I needed to add a single item, right? So I have a prepared search here. So let's say that I was using an Evans Library database. In this case, this is Academic Search Complete. So again, let's say I was conducting my research. I'm looking at these different options. So here's the article that I wanted to show you guys. So let's say that I find this article in my search. I think this is valuable. Maybe I've looked at the PDF full text and I've read the abstract. I think this is really going to help me with my thesis statement for my research paper. So I want to save this item to my Zotero library. So all I have to do is, as I demonstrated in the slides, go up to my Zotero connector. And again, the icon has changed. Right now we're seeing a little paper icon. So if I click save, it brings this up, and I like to expand it because, again, I typically like to add items directly into a collection. So let's say, again, that I was writing a COM 1102 paper, writing about literature. So I have a folder prepared for that paper. I'm going to put this item directly in there. Now I can add tags if I want to from here. It is telling me that it's saving the PDF file, which is great because I have full text access. All I have to do is click done. Now, this is where I always said it's deceptively easy because it looks like nothing has happened. But as soon as you open your Zotero application, it will take you to the collection that you have saved this item in, and it highlights the item. So this is the new item that I've added to my Zotero library. And in particular, I put it into my COM 1102 collection. Now, the important thing when you add an item is to double check the metadata. Now let me make this just a little bit bigger so we can see it here. So as I said in my slides, the metadata is what Zotero uses to create citations and to, give you full text access again later on. So it's really important to check this metadata because this is a tool, this is a software tool, and we are the human researcher. We do have to be a little bit smarter than the computer. So we want to double check to make sure all of this metadata is correct and in the right place. Now, when we're saving items from academic databases especially, you will find that there's not a lot of errors in the metadata. And in this case, looking this over, this all looks correct to me. It is identified that it is a journal article. If it were not a journal article, all you have to do is click on this field and it gives you all kinds of other options for different item types. And again, the title and the author, it even imported the abstract for us. It tells us the name of the journal and the journal publication information. It has the DOI for the article, which again is a really helpful identifier. And it also has a URL that will take us back to this academic search complete page for this item. So it's deceptively easy, right? Especially when you're saving from an academic database. This is all very straightforward. Now, there might be a situation where you want to save something just from the web. Like I've said a few times, Zotero will save almost any type of information source. So let's do a different example. Let's say that you found this article. Now, Gizmodo is a website. I think they may have at one time had like a print magazine. So it's a little bit like a magazine or a blog type website. This is not an academic source, but there are times in academic research where we will look at these popular or general audience sources. So again, let's say that I like this article. I want to make sure that I save it into my Zotero library. So I'm going to go up to my connector. Notice that the icon has changed. So instead of that little paper icon for the journal article, it's identifying that this is probably a web page or maybe even a magazine article. So the icon looks a little different, but we'll click on it. Now, in this case, I don't want to save it to my 1102 collection. I'm just going to save it into my library. I can make a choice on how I want to organize it later on. And here's that example of a snapshot. So there is no PDF available for this article. So Zotero is taking a little snapshot just so that you have that retained in your library. So I'm going to click Done. And again, when I open my Zotero library, I get taken to my full library list. And here is the article. And in this case, it's identified it as a web page. I would say that that's an appropriate way to identify this because, again, there's not necessarily a situation where, like, let's say, for example, Time magazine. They still publish a printed magazine version, and they also have a website version. So if you were using something like that, you could reasonably describe it as a magazine article. But in this case, I think web page works fine. We want to make sure that the information is correct. So here we have the title of the article, which looking at the web page is correct. And we have the author information. It pulls out a little abstract. I'm not sure where it got this from, but it looks like it's more or less useful. Now, this is where we are finding an error in the metadata. Now, the website title, it says is I09, and I'm thinking it's pulling that from the URL, if we notice that's coming in front here. But in particular, it's posted in this Gizmodo type website. So what I'm going to do is click here and edit this metadata field. So I'm going to change this to reflect what I see in my web browser. So I'll change this to Gizmodo. The other thing that it didn't pull out is the date. Now this has a published date on it, if we can see right underneath the author's name on the web page. It is May 27th, 2015. So I'm going to put that date in here. Now, especially when we're doing citations, a publication date is a really important part of the citation. So this is why we always want to double check the metadata and, again, make those edits or additions if we have to. The URL, it's pulling from the web browser. It looks correct to me. And then again, there's some little additional things here which we might not have this information. And if you don't and the field is blank, you certainly don't have to go through trying to find it. Oh, oops. All right, so that is the Zotero connector method for saving items. The other thing to notice about the metadata pane, and let me click on a journal article to show you, this one has a lot more details. So when you're editing or you're looking over your metadata, you'll also notice that there are these little tabs here at the top of this metadata column. These are where you can make either notes or add tags about this particular item. So if you missed the step saving it in your Zotero connector and you want to add tags to this article, you can go here in the metadata column and add them. You can also add notes. Now this is a really another really useful way that Zotero gives you to kind of customize your research workflow, if you want to say it that way. As you're reading this PDF of this article, you can add notes, so all of your notes are retained in Zotero. So instead of taking notes in a notebook or having a Word document open and typing things out, you can just take your notes directly in Zotero and everything is saved together. Now, when you're looking at your library, if you click on the little arrow that's next to these items, this is where you'll see the things that you've added. So we have the full text PDF retained in our library. So it's here. You can double click it to open it. I'm not going to do that right now. You can also see notes. So if someone has added notes to this article, which I did for this one, they will also come up underneath the item itself. So that's when I said I described it earlier, these things are connected to the item. So there's no searching in a separate place for your PDFs. Everything is all together. Okay. So let's move on then to talking about a couple of other ways to save your items. So saving with the Zotero connector, making sure you edit your metadata, easy ways to do it. There are other ways to save items into your Zotero library. Now, this is where someone mentioned before about the DOI number. So if you're in your Zotero application, you'll see these little buttons up here at the top. So we're going to look at a couple of these right now. This one, if you hover over it, it says Add Items by Identifier. So this is where you can enter a DOI, or if you have a book, you can enter an ISBN number, and it will automatically pull the information for that article or for that item into Zotero. So it pulls it out from the internet, right? It's smart. It's actually pretty cool how it works. Now, I don't have a DOI on hand, but I have an example. I'm going to use a book. So again, let's say you're doing your research or you're writing your paper and you need to include your textbook as one of your references. You can put your textbook or whatever book you're using into your Zotero account. So when you're looking at a book, the identifier is that ISBN number that's typically found right above the barcode or somewhere on the back of the book. If it's not on the back of the book, look in the first couple of pages and you'll see it listed as an ISBN. So in this case, all you have to do is type in the ISBN number. And give me just a second to do that. So once you have your number typed in, and again, this works as well for DOI numbers, you just press enter. And it automatically finds the information for the book on the web. And here's the metadata. And now because I have the book in front of me, it's really easy to double check the metadata to make sure that all this information is correct. In this case, it is a book. I know it is. I have the names of the editors and the title. If it were a series or it had a volume number, you could add that additional information. In this case, this book doesn't have that, but some textbooks do. So you'd want to add all that information in here. And now again, you can create your citations using this metadata, as well as just save this as a reference in your Zotero library. This is the same method that you would use if you had a list of citations for articles with DOI numbers. You could just copy and paste the DOI numbers into this Add by Identifier field, and it will automatically do that for you. So it's pretty magical as well. Very easy. There are a couple of other ways to add items to Zotero, and that's one thing. I think I kind of mentioned this in passing, but there are so many ways to customize the use of Zotero, so we're certainly not going to cover everything together this evening. But I wanted to show you that there is a manual add for items. So if you do have an item that you can't pull the information from the DOI or the ISBN, sometimes that happens if you're trying to cite something older, perhaps. You can use this Add New Item. You'll select the type of item it is. And again, this is important when it comes to citing the item. So you'd want to properly identify it. So, if it's a book, it's a journal article, it's an interview. Once you click on this field, it just gives you an empty metadata pane, and you'll add the information in for that new source. It's very easy. I'm not going to demonstrate this, but there is also a way to add an item to your library by importing a PDF. So if you already have a PDF of a journal article saved, you can add your PDF file to Zotero. It comes up as just sort of an empty PDF, and when you click on it, there's a button that says Retrieve Metadata. So it does exactly what you would expect. It pulls the metadata either out of the PDF or from online, and it will create that item in Zotero. And then all you have to do is double check and proofread your metadata to make sure it's correct. It does take a little bit of practice to get oriented with Zotero, but once you understand how the little vocabulary that they use and the way they organize, it's all very easy. Now I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about the organizing and sharing. So in particular, I wanted to show you how to create a collection. Now, I've already explained how these collections work. They are all items that you're sorting. So your master list of items will be in your library, and then your collections are here. Now, if you want to create a new collection, you just go here and create new collection. It needs a name. So let's just say this is our test collection. So when you press OK, you'll see it pop up in your list of collections. Now you can go to your library and drag and drop items into your new collection. Remember, it doesn't disappear from your library list. That's your master list of items, but it will appear here in this new collection. The other way that you can add items to a collection is by using your Zotero connector. Remember, when you click on this, you can add an item directly to a collection. And when you open your Zotero app, you'll see the article is in there. When you delete items from your collection, again, it will move the item to the trash, but it will still show up in your library list. So you're not deleting it completely. If you do want to delete something from Zotero completely, you have to do it from your library list. I wanted to also show you all how to create a group library, because this is a really awesome extra feature of Zotero in that you can pull in collaboration from other people. So this doesn't just have to be your own research. You can collaboratively research with others, especially, again, if you're working on a project. Now, the thing about group libraries is that you have to create them from the Zotero website. So when you're creating a new group library, you have to do it online rather than from your Zotero application. So I just wanted to walk you through how to do that so that you all have a visual of what that looks like. So of course, you'll start out by going to zotero.org. You will log in with your Zotero account. And here is the web interface. And again, it looks pretty similar to the desktop application interface. You've still got your 3 columns across. But what we're looking for are the groups. So up at the top of your page, you'll click on groups. Now, when you're looking at your groups, I already own and I'm a member in a couple of groups, so all of them are showing up here. You can create a new group. You'll choose the name. So let's say too that this is just our test group. You can make it public so that anyone in Zotero can search for the groups. If you notice, there's a little search bar here. So, even if you're just interested in like surfing or, sustainability, you can find Zotero groups for those topics, and they already have people adding articles and information. So it's just kind of a cool way to share. Or you can do something private. So again, if you're doing like a group for a assignment, you might want to keep it as a private group. It will take you to some settings here. So you can manage the settings for the group and the settings for the members. So this is where you will add members by sending invitations. And again, as it says, you can email address or Zotero usernames. If you do send a Zotero group invitation to someone that does not have a Zotero account, it will prompt them to create an account in order to join the group. But again, it is free to create an account. So especially if you're collaborating with folks, it's a good way to get everybody working together. Oh yeah, we got another question about tags. So that's the next thing I'm going to cover because I know we're running a little over or a little slow on time. So let me talk with you guys about tags. Oh, and when you create a new group on the Zotero website, when you open your Zotero application, you may need to sync it before you see your new group popping up here, just as an FYI. So let's talk about tags. Now, tags are something that I don't have extensive personal experience with. I'm not really a user of tags, but I can see how they could be really, really helpful and beneficial, and especially with that sort of meta organizing. So you can create tags according to the content of the articles or themes across articles. You can also use tags as reminders or action items. So for example, if you have a group of articles that you're adding to your Zotero library that you want to read, you can tag them all with to read. And then when you search through your tags, you can click on a tag and it will pull out all of the items that are that include that tag. Now, again, I'm not a big tag user, so let's just see what sort of lists I get here. 21st century, right? So you'll filter through your tags this way. When you add tags, you can add them to individual records. I already showed you guys how to do that here in the metadata pane. And when you're looking at your list of tags from your library here in the Zotero application, you can also right-click these tags and assign a color. So you can also color code your library, and you can even filter tags by color. So if that's another way that you like to organize things and that will help you with your workflow, then that's absolutely a great idea. And again, from here too, you can rename and delete tags. Asked if you have several items tagged as dividend policy. That's exactly how that would work. You would find your tag here, or you would search for it. And when you click on that, it's going to automatically filter your library and just show you the things that have that tag. And again, right-clicking and assigning color is another way to organize. There's a lot of really good information on the Zotero website about tagging. So when you're looking at Zotero, if you go to the documentation tab, this is where they have all of their help documents. And there's a whole page here on tags. So you can get all of that really great information that's helpful as well. Okay, so in the time remaining, I want to show you guys the easy ways to create citations. Now, remember, we have an additional follow-up workshop coming up in a couple of weeks on Zotero. It's going to be March 10th at the same time, 5 p.m. And that workshop will dive a lot more into creating citations and bibliographies, as well as how to integrate Zotero into your word processor. So that's going to kind of take you to that next step. But I wanted to show you at least a couple of easy ways to create citations and bibliographies. Now, the first thing to remember is that Zotero does have a little bit of vocabulary here. They call citations, well, what they call citations are what we usually call in-text citations. What they call bibliographies are the full bibliographic citations. So there's a little bit, again, of some difference here, but when we're looking to create full citations for a set of articles, there are a couple of ways to do it. Now, the first way that I'll show you is something called quick copy. And exactly like the name, as you can imagine, it is a quick copy of the information from Zotero. It pulls it out and cites it in a Word document. So all you have to do is select either one article or a group of articles. So in this case, let me pull out a few here that have to do with library instruction, right? Now, in order to use quick copy, you have to pull these items into a text field. So it might be that you have a Word document open, a paper or a project that you're already working on. So when you have your items selected in your Zotero library, you can click and drag them into your word processor, and it's like magic. It automatically creates these full citations. Now, the cool thing about quick copy is that, again, it's designed to be a quick copy. So you do have to adjust the quick copy default configurations in order to get the right kinds of citations. So I want to show you quickly how to access those quick copy defaults, because you will want to adjust them in order to make quick copy work for you. So when you're in your Zotero library, if you go to Edit, you will see Preferences. Now this is another vocabulary thing. You won't find a list of settings in Zotero because they call them preferences. So settings, preferences, same thing. Now, when you're looking for your quick copy settings, it is under this tab for export. And this is where you'll choose the citation style that the quick copy creates. Now, my field at library science, we use APA style, so that's what I've set my quick copy to. But as you can see, you can adjust it to pretty much any style that you need. There's also some additional settings here, but I leave those always to default. I find that quick copy works so well, I never really have to mess with it too much. You'll notice also, just as an aside, that there are other tabs in this Zotero preferences list. There are so many ways to customize Zotero. So I would encourage you guys to look through these list of preferences to see what sort of things you can utilize and take advantage of. There are also keyboard shortcuts for quick copy. So let's say that I want to make this same list of references, but I want to use my quick copy shortcuts. So you can, on a computer or on a Windows computer, use Control-Shift-C. So when you're looking at your highlighted items, Control-Shift-C. And then when you go into your word processor, you just Control-V to paste, and it will automatically paste those citations. If you want to quick copy for an in-text citation, you can do Control-Shift-A and have your article highlighted. And then when you get here into your word processor, Control-V to paste, and it will format that in-text citation. Now, again, I have it set to APA style, so this is an APA in-text citation. So quick copy is the easiest way to create citations from your Zotero library. But there are a few other ways, so I'm going to show you one other way to do it. Let's get rid of these here. So I have my blank word processor here. Now, like quick copy, you can select a few different articles, right-click on them, and create bibliography from items. This also works for an entire collection. And this is the way I prefer. So if I've been, again, working on a whole project, or for you guys, if you're working on a paper and you have a collection set up with all of the items that you're going to be citing in your paper, you can go directly to the collection, right-click on it, and create bibliography from collection. So this is a really easy way to get a bulk list of citations. Now, when you're doing it this way with the right-click method, you're going to get a dialog box that will give you additional details. So you can choose the citation style from here. There's an output mode. So again, you can click from in-text citations or bibliography, which is the full list of citations. There are 4 different output methods. It can save it as a rich text file, or as an HTML file. It can copy to clipboard, which is my preferred method because I usually already have a Word document open or some kind of project open that I'm already working on, so I can just paste those items directly into it. It can also print your bibliography. So especially for early stages of a literature review, if you just need a list of, a works cited list or a references list, you can just directly print it. But I'm going to copy to clipboard, and when you go into your Word document, you just paste, and here is my full collection, my bibliography. And the great thing about this Zotero function, again, is that it formats your citations according to the citation style. So all you have to do from here is double check those citations, proofread them to make sure that they're correct, but it really does the bulk lion's share of the work for you. So it is awesome. Now, of course, keep in mind, like I said at the beginning, that you'll always want to proofread your metadata. And this is especially true if you create citations and you proofread them and you find that they're incorrect. It's probably a problem with the metadata. So make sure you're looking back at these details. The common issue that I have seen when I've gotten incorrect citations is that the item type is wrong. because there are specific ways to cite different types of sources in different styles. So again, if you're, trying to cite a web page, but it thinks it's a magazine article, you're going to get a citation that doesn't look right. Good. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for attending. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys again at our follow-up workshop on March 10th. So I'm so glad it was helpful. Wonderful. Well, again, take advantage of those library resources that I mentioned. If anyone would like a copy of my PowerPoint slides, I'm happy to send them to you as well. So please just reach out. But otherwise, have a wonderful evening. Thank you all so much.